Hey everyone, so this is my review of Wisdom of a Crowd, Season 1, Episode 5, called Clear History. And essentially what this episode is about is that Tanner becomes in trouble with the old organization that he created when they threatened to sue him and his company for the belief that they stole some copyrighted code from the organization before they fully established themselves as Sophie. And they sort of have to deal with that because if they don't, then there is the big threat that Sophie might be permanently shut down. And then while that's going on, the Sophie team take on a case with the PD that is about the sudden murder of a retired police officer. And this was a really interesting and really kind of weird episode with how it was all done and where the story webbed to eventually come up with the truth of who killed the old police officer. And I did like, before I go into everything with the police officer, all the moments with the code and the copyright code and all that stuff was interesting with how it was all shown that several thousand lines of code were supposedly copyrighted. So then they had to go through and figure out where all this code originated from, and most of it they had claim over because they claimed it before they left the organization. So Tanner and the team were okay with that bunch of code. And then the code was different enough that it couldn't hold up in court, that this chunk. But then there was I think it said 300 something lines of code that were kind of, they believed that they were in the clear, but then Tanner's old organization came back with this whole bunch of decrees and stuff that they actually didn't hold claim over that code. And that I'm very interested to see how that might work out in the future and how all that's going to be fixed, since technically some of the employees that work at Sophie actually don't work there because the company actually holds claim over them, essentially. And that I'm very interested to see. And I'm very interested to know why the organization chose to hold that off as a thing that they knew about for so long. And then everything around the detective was very interesting with how the story sort of went and led to the truth. But I'm not that happy with how this episode ended because it felt like a very, very rushed ending. Where I liked up to the point where they had the drug dealer's sort of girlfriend talking about, oh, this guy's very threatening and very all this stuff. And then they brought him in, but they didn't have any evidence to really prove that he did the murder. So then the part that I don't like was essentially after that point, where all of a sudden they kind of came up with a maybe vague story, and then all of a sudden they had the truth come out of him. It just felt very, very rushed, and the writers were like, oh crap, we need to end this. And I didn't like it for that reason, that they just came up with this sudden extra storyline in there as to why this drug dealer killed the detective and killed this other guy. That felt so weird to me, having that little extra bit of a story that caused him to give the confession to killing everyone. It just felt weird. But I did like the whole, like I said, the tracking down and figuring out what was actually going on, and then the whole connection between everyone within this department and the reasons why certain people can't work on the case and stuff like that was very interesting with how it was all done and why. And then I just really, really liked how they used Sophie in solving this case, that they didn't exactly use her to solve the case, but they used her based on her data and predictions to figure out what the most possible motive for these murders was. And that I really liked, with them sort of the police department coming up with, oh, he did this murder because of the fact of a turf war and stuff. But then Sophie's description of it was that it was much more personal than that. So then they kind of took that data and stuff to sort of relook at stuff. I really enjoyed that they used Sophie for that reason instead of sort of having Sophie solve the whole case, essentially. And then just overall, this was a really, really great and really entertaining episode that had a lot of very fun sort of moments in it that just were so much fun to watch. So yeah, that's my review of Wisdom of a Crowd, Season 1, Episode 5, called Clear History. So yeah,